No, I mean we could. I mean, I actually went in and edited the video, so now so. Uh, at least Jerry doesn't think we should be giving away taxpayer money to people for the sake of giving it away. Oh, I fixed that too. If people would stop monkeying with that YouTube channel, just leave it alone. I know it's not you. Yeah, I know you. But we got that. Well, that. I could do that if you want. Well, everyone knows I'm the most important doctor. Okay, I'm about to mute you guys, and we're gonna be live in 10 seconds. So I will. Let's see. I'm taking the whole screen down, and we are. Hold on. Technical problems. Hold on. What's happening? It's not showing anything. 1 second. Damn it! I gotta log into Caster. Hold on. Oh, okay, well, we can mute the audio. That's fine. Live television. We are live with a few technical difficulties with Dr. Politics and the Political Architect Show for Friday, August 21st. We are joined by Mark Unkefer, Esquire, attorney at law, barred in the great state of New York.
But not Maryland.
That's true.
But not Maryland. We want to make sure that people know that.
Yes, you are not a Maryland lawyer. So Jackie Sackstein from the great state of New Jersey, the land of Christy Todd Whitman and Krispy Kreme Christie. And home of Trump casinos. Donald Irvine joins us from lovely Durwood, Maryland, treasurer of the Montgomery County Republican Club, and you were former chairman of Accuracy Media and chairman of Accuracy Academia, and Don's all around a good guy. And last but not least, we've got Maryland celebrity Brian Griffiths, founder of Red Maryland and the Duck Pin now, and Brian joins us from the lovely county of Anne Arundel.
The Dirty Dina. It's the Dirty Dina, man.
We're missing Ryan this week, who went back to school for. I mean, we're taking bets, but my money's on about 2 weeks before they shut it down.
What gets shut down first, school or the ACC football season?
Football season.
I don't think football season's even going to start, but that's just my personal opinion.
So do you think it's going to shut down after the housing check clears?
Yes.
Of course.
Non-refundable.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Are we ready to start, gang?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okay. 74 days before the election. Just always have to throw out that number as we move ever closer to that time, we find out who will be the next president of the United States. Will it be Donald J. Trump or will it be Joe Biden? So let's talk. We're going to spend some time here to talk about the Democratic National Convention that has concluded last night after 4 days of festivities, very muted festivities, having going online, virtual only. No one can come and attend the events. But I want to ask you, there were a lot of speakers, and I want to ask you some questions about some of these speakers and get your reaction. So let's start off with John Kasich. What was your reaction last night after 4 days of festivities?
I thought it was
very muted
the Zoom background was very fun. Like, we're at a crossroads. I'm like, really? You can't just paint that picture in our minds. You have to literally be standing.
And it wasn't even a crossroads. It was a fork in the road.
Fork in the road, right?
Hey, things are different in Ohio, Brian. Maybe in Ohio.
Here's the thing. Hey, leave Ohio alone. Here's the thing that I don't understand. We're talking about a major national issue regarding the post office, and he didn't once mention that his father was a mailman. I don't know if anybody knew that. His father was a mailman.
Hey, didn't we know that all four? Didn't he spend most of early 2016 telling everyone that his dad was a mailman? And by the way, I'm glad you brought up the post office, Brian. If there is
tangent already, we've been live.
Well, no, let's not go there yet.
We're only 3 minutes.
Let's stay on the DNC. We're going to get to the post office a little bit later here. Okay, but what about a couple things that I want to know about, or at least ask about, is that one of the things that Kasich said was the concern that Joe was going to the left, that he was going to take a left turn. And, Kasich said, I take the measure of a man. He was trying to reassure those that were watching that Biden is not going to take a left turn. Now, that kind of doesn't really jive with the platform they have.
Or the VP he picked.
With the VP he picked. And the Bernie Sanders speech, which talked about, in essence, the progressive left agenda is very much alive. If Biden wins, this is a good thing for them.
I think in general that if somebody tells you who they are, listen to them. Yes. And it's not even just the Bernie or the Kamala Harris or anything like that. The agenda that Biden is laying out is a far left agenda. I mean, that's not the question. It is different than the agenda that he has kind of run on in the past, and that the way he is governed. But he also hasn't taken a vote of any significance in 12 years since he was in the Senate. And if he was going to tack to the center, this would be the time to do it, because we are getting to the general election. He's not doing that right now, and we could spend an hour talking about why that may or may not be a good idea. But I believe him at this point when he says that he is going to take a left agenda. I understand that Kasich is going to vote for Biden, that Kasich is never going to vote for Trump. There's a certain irony in that, but listen to what the man says. He's not saying he's going to tack to the center and has a far left agenda. He's saying I'm going this way.
I think what they're not realizing, what Kasich doesn't want to accept, is that they cannot have it both ways. He can't be a moderate and have a far left platform. And I think if they go for the far left platform, they're realizing that they're isolating a lot of moderate voters in the swing states. So they really can't commit to that. But the other thing is that was the main theme that you thought that they really tried to portray at the DNC, was this one of, there's so many Republicans that hate Trump so much that they are leaving the Republican Party to vote for Joe Biden. You saw, and I think, the biggest example of that on top of the Kasich thing was the video of John McCain and, how they work, despite being on opposite sides of the aisle, how they always would come together and go and cross over, and Joe wants to work with both sides. But he cannot have both that message and the progressive message. He's going to have to choose one, and Trump is going to make him choose one very, very quickly.
And as somebody who is not going to vote for Trump, I sure as hell ain't going to vote for Biden either. I mean, it's why would I, if my issues with Trump is that he's too liberal, why would I then go vote for Biden?
Well, here's the thing. The Democrat Party right now is driving around with the left turn signal on, just like every 90-year-old person driving on the interstates.
It's not even a left turn signal to white. The steering wheel is the car is out of alignment. The car is just pulling that way no matter what you do.
But here's the thing. Okay, only people who really watched the convention were the true believers, as Stanley would say. They have not moved a single moderate vote anywhere in the country. There is people who live in the suburbs of Pittsburgh. They're not going to vote for Joe Biden. I mean, look at the people that came out for the rally in Scranton. People in Scranton, Pennsylvania, are not going to vote for Biden-Harris because they know what's going to happen if you elect Biden-Harris. Your jobs are going away. You're going to, as Ross Perot would say, you're hearing a giant sucking sound.
But Dwight, if you're looking at the dynamics of what the Democratic Convention had to accomplish,
Yeah.
they largely accomplished what they needed to
They
do,
basically
which was
did-
no.
basically-
But hear me out. You know, by all accounts, Biden is ahead of the polls. He's certainly ahead in key electoral states. I'm not saying, obviously, we went through this 4 years ago, and the dynamic can be very, very fluid. But as of this moment, Biden certainly succeeded to present himself as a very low bar, a very viable presidential candidate.
Yeah.
And so we're now having a discussion of, is he moderate? Is he to the left? That's exactly the kind of discussion that frankly helps his candidacy.
But
Not
here's
just, but here's the other thing too, Dwight, if I may. This election, and it's very clear what the Democratic messaging is. The Democratic messaging is going to be a referendum on Trump. If you like Trump, vote for Trump. If you don't like Trump, vote for Biden. That's the issue.
But here's the thing:
It-
the Biden
President's personality.
campaign, the Biden message. I tell you, I'm getting a lot of Mitt Romney vibes from 2012. We all thought Mitt Romney was going to beat Barack Hussein Obama. We did not. There was a lot of. I mean, I've gone through. I mean, living in Maryland, I've seen a lot of candidates lose year in, year out, and I was even a little devastated. I had to pick myself up because we had an event like 2 days later where I had to kind of energize the base and so on. But the bottom line is, I think the Democrats are headed for that same kind of defeat, and they're going to be
They
very
are.
angry. And let me tell you, we're going to see rioting in the streets all over again if President Trump wins again. Because
I think we're fighting in the streets either way. The problem is
I don't think our people are going to riot.
the platform of
I don't know about that, man.
Dwight,
No.
sorry.
the campaign message of we're not Trump isn't enough to win.
Yeah, it is.
Trump
No,
is
it's
That
not.
is-
Mark,
I-
Mark, they tried that in
Trump all you want,
2004.
unless you're
Remember?
Trump, that's
He's
how you're
not
going
Bush.
to
That's
do
why I
it,
vote
right?
for John Kerry. That was their message in 2004. Oh, he's not Bush, so let's just vote
George
for John
W.
Kerry.
Bush was far more popular than President
But you
Trump.
can- but
Nor
you
was
can
there a massive recession
Trump
or a
all they
pandemic.
want.
or any of this.
They can
But,
attack
you know-
him all they want, say how he's doing it wrong, unless they're actually presenting solutions on how they're going to do it right, which I really did not hear a lot of, as much as I heard Trump sucks during
Mhm.
this convention. They're not going to get voters that way, because we get it. You don't like Trump. What are you going to do differently?
And if you
How
were,
are
I
you
mean-
better?
I mean, even if you go back to 1992, the Republican National Convention, pundits, even some of our friends like Bob Novak said, the president's in trouble if the loudest cheers at the convention are gay bashing and what was the other thing? He said something else. It was gay bashing and something else. Is what he said. Those were the loudest cheers. That he goes, the party's in trouble if that's the message. And that's the problem with the Democrat Party. They've got no message. What is their solutions? I did not hear one single solution.
Exactly.
Except for the fact that fat cat liberal media junkies are going to just stop talking about COVID the day after Biden.
Let's remember this, though. Let's remember this. The five of us are not the target audience for everything that went on at the convention. The target audience is that Goodyear worker in Ohio who thought Trump was on their side until he started mouthing off about tires and how he's taking Goodyears off the presidential limo or whatever came out of his mouth that day. That's the target audience, the people who voted for Trump in 2016 who were thinking to myself, things are not better than they were 4 years ago. Why would I do this again?
Let's see.
I'm not. Look, I am smart enough to know that I don't know what's going to happen the next 74 days. Okay,
Right.
I am out of the prediction business
Yeah.
at this point because
I'm-
everything
look,
could go completely sideways one way or the other.
I mean,
But that's the voter who's going to decide the election.
see, here's the thing. That voter's also going to think, Joe Biden gets elected, he's going to send my jobs to China or Mexico.
Do they?
Yeah, they should. They'd be pretty
But
stupid if they
what
don't.
they should
And
think
they
and what they
are.
do think are two different things. Yeah.
Because
It's still gonna
who brought these jobs back? It was President Trump.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
that's
still,
debatable in Ohio,
it's
too.
still going to come down to the economy a lot of times, to where we are at that point. It's going to get better, but we already saw with the jobless claims numbers, the initial jobless claims, is that we saw a spike back up. We're still stubbornly in that million, claim range, which is not great.
But
With the expiration of your much hated extra $600, a week, money into unemployment, which I don't like that either. There's spending is going to take a tumble until they can do something about that. There's some of those things that the economy still is not healthy enough to sustain itself the way it was pre-pandemic. But one of the things that I'm concerned about with this election, Trump versus Biden, is that when I look back 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton was a great target for Donald Trump. There was she had very high unfavorability among even Democrats. Very easy. Biden does not have that same level of unfavorability. I mean, he's more even keel on that.
But
it's hard. It's much harder for Trump to pin a lot of stuff because we talked about it at the beginning. I mean, what is Joe Biden? He's kind of who really hates Joe Biden.
Very
Joe
likable.
Joe Biden
He is.
a plagiarist.
He doesn't
Biden-
elicit the same response as Hillary Clinton.
He doesn't inspire any kind of enthusiasm either.
Right.
He's-
That's
he
going to be a
is their-
problem too.
He's their Bob Dole, Don. He is their Bob Dole.
And
Joe Biden, he's going to start talking in third person.
That's a good analogy,
He is
and
their Bob
I
Dole.
would fine, and I'll concede you that. And were it not for COVID, were the numbers that we had in January had even just continued the way they were until now, then you would have had a replay. I would argue you would have had at least a replay of the election that we had in 1996. The challenge is we're not talking about January anymore. We're talking about a country and an economy that's in the middle of a crisis.
March 1st, I thought Trump was a slam dunk to get reelected.
But
Yeah.
here's
They
the
made
thing.
a
the
lot of us
fact
would.
that everyone expected them to make, which was look at our economy, look at our unemployment
We've
number. And it was like, okay, but are we not considering what he did for the economy and unemployment before we got hit with a global pandemic?
Yeah, but in elections, it's the short-term memory. It's what happened within the last
But here's the thing.
30 days or 2 weeks. That's
here's
what they're going to remember.
Which is
This is what will happen if Joe Biden becomes president.
You can judge him for the way that he's handled the pandemic. Yes, that is totally fair. Judge him positively or negatively depending on how you feel. But judging the way that the economy and unemployment was now, I feel like you also need to give equal credit for what he did for the past 3 years before we got hit with COVID.
And that's fair from a historical and analytical perspective, but voters, as you know, don't think like that.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
But
That's
here's
the
the thing.
point.
At the end of the day, though, here's the thing. I just don't see Americans voting for a senile old kook who should be locked up in a mental asylum somewhere because he doesn't have his mental faculties together.
But he didn't show that last night.
Yeah,
Yep.
Right?
because he knows how to
He
read
did-
a teleprompter. We know his eyes are pretty good.
But that doesn't
Right,
matter.
that's why
He
it's
came
so
across,
Yeah,
even people on Fox News
yeah.
praised the Biden speech. Okay, so he was getting credit from all sectors in that sense
Mhm.
for that. It was hard for the Republicans to really poke a lot of holes in Biden. He came off very well last night. He's been waiting 32 years to deliver that speech.
Yeah.
Unbelievable
Hey,
that
did
you have to
he write
wait that long.
speech himself, or did he plagiarize Leo Kinnick again?
Well, yeah.
Nobody remembers that.
I do.
Don,
That's
why
true.
the debates are going
I
to be
do.
so critical because that's when people are going to see what does he look like when he doesn't have the aid of a teleprompter. He's on his own, presumably, for 3 hours where he needs to hold his ground against Trump, who is easily going to come out swinging. We know that.
Wait till the debate.
My mom is sitting there waiting to see if she can spot an earpiece in Joe Biden's ear during the.
Wait-
during-
I mean, there are risks for Biden, obviously, which is just what you're saying. I mean, the debates and going out there on the stump where he has to actually kind of know what he's talking about. He's not going to have the aid of a lot of other, prepared things,
Yeah.
and his tendency to kind of go off script a little bit. But so those are going to be risks. The question is that, will he blow this? Can he actually screw up enough between now and the election? So now, and I'm going to always, like I said before, now until people start casting their votes, which will be the third week of September, can he screw this up bad enough to lose votes that way?
I think
Well,
so.
wait till-
I'm not
wait-
really sure
wait-
yet. I mean,
wait till he stumbles down the steps going down an airplane or something like that. Wait till he trips over himself.
I
or
think
something.
that's
You
not
got to
good.
remember,
That's
Trump's a
not
74-year-old man too. He could just as easily do any of the things, Dwight, that you're
Right.
suggesting. Me,
right. I mean, Biden's only a few years older, so I mean,
Yeah.
these are two guys right in their 70s.
And-
not
and
like
Tw-
it's not like
Dwight-
Trump 40 and running marathons. You know.
Yeah, and Dwight is lowering the expectations, which let's be fair. One of the advantages that Biden, we're not blaming it all on you, Dwight, but one of the advantages Biden has is that the expectations are continually being lowered.
Exactly.
That
Basically, America is going to, for the first time in a long time, they're actually seriously considering electing a D student as president. A D
Okay,
student.
but
Think
the
about that
bigger-
for a minute.
The
A
bigger
D
question
student.
might be
I don't know if
a good
that
segue
doesn't-
into-
The
into
That's
guy,
not gonna
the guy,
register.
the guy like
There are
played
more
President-
D students than A+ students, dude.
Yeah, and your point is,
Just because you weren't a great student or does not preclude you from becoming a world leader or some great individual, some
Yeah.
entrepreneur who funds it. I mean, how many people who have had dyslexia and other
Yeah.
issues that have come on to become some of the greatest people we've known, greatest inventors and things like that. So
but Joe Biden's
don't-
none of those things, though.
I don't
Joe
hold
Biden-
any of that against him at all. I mean,
another
that's
concern here, and this might be going into the segue that Dwight wants to talk about the mailing system, is that how many people who may, because I'm sure, I would say probably at least 80% of people already know who they're going to vote for, right? Now, assuming that we're having this all mail-in election or predominantly mail-in election, how many people at risk of thinking that their vote is not going to get counted in a timely fashion are going to vote before they've been 100% sure of who they want before they watch all the debates? That's the other thing I'm concerned about, is how many people are just like, well, I need to pick someone. I got my ballot in the mail. I got to get it back in the mail tomorrow.
Mhm.
But, the first debate hasn't happened yet, or only the first debate has happened.
I think,
Very fair
first
point.
of all, I think what's happening is, okay, first of all, yeah, Joe had, but here's the thing, we bat last, wait till next week, we've got our convention, we've got some surprises coming out too, our convention, we can choreograph just as well as the Democrats can, or maybe even better.
right. And I want to move into that. We'll move into it very shortly. I do want to say one more thing though here, or at least get a quick opinion about the Obama's speeches at the convention and the Clinton speeches, particularly Hillary talking about, you can get 3 million more votes and still lose the election. So kind of watch out. Is she still a little sore from 2016?
Oh,
By the
she
way,
never let that go.
you think?
I do want to say something that I observed. I know, and I can say this. I think,
Get ready with the button.
He
No,
has
I mean,
not
I
done
was saying Bill Clinton.
Can we get a virtual button?
Bill Clinton looks good. He's lost a lot of weight. He looks good. He looks like he could run for president again. I think Hillary found that weight that he lost. And I, as a fat person, can say that.
Oh no, Dwight. No.
There's no shame in
Right.
that.
I mean, if you're going to talk about Bill Clinton, you should mention the fact that he was trying to kind of lecture Trump on how to conduct himself in the Oval Office.
I know that's
Okay.
hilarious.
Yeah, it's
Not
kind of-
that we're excusing Donald Trump in the Oval Office for things that may have.
Well, I mean, how
We've
about-
done that in the
Yeah.
Oval Office that
And-
we're aware of.
And
But-
here's the thing. How about Jimmy Carter going saying, "I know how to run a country in a crisis"? Really, Jimmy? 443 days. Really? How? Which crisis are you talking about?
I'm
After
curious.
him?
My mom, Dwight.
What's
When
that?
was the last convention they let him speak at?
I think he spoke in 1992. Yes, he
sounds
did. He spoke in 92 because he goes, "Let's give George Bush an early retirement like they gave me." I wanted to smack that man, the smug smile off his face. Go build a house, Jimmy.
All right, let's move on to a couple things here that are kind of work together. So while the DNC convention was going on, what was President Trump doing? He was going around the country to battleground type states, campaigning, and now that disparaging Biden and Harris along the way, and trying to paint Biden as a socialist and all these things. I don't know. I mean, Brian, for example, I mean, does that message, does that resonate? Is that a working theme of if the Republicans or Trump paints Biden and the Harris ticket as far left, is that something that's going to attract voters
It might. I mean, people trying to talk about socialism and stopping socialism has been effective before. Just look at what happened when Ben Jealous got painted as a socialist in our election in 2018 here. I think it's amusing, too, by the way, that a lot of people were criticizing the Trump campaign for even going out and campaigning this week because, most campaigns lay low during the other side's convention. No, that's a terrible reason. You play to win the game, go campaign.
And Brian,
that is like Fernando Tatis on that 3-0 pitch, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
And Brian,
don't throw bad pitches up 3-0.
If you recall, in 1992, the Clinton campaign didn't shut up during the during the Republican convention. You had Ron Brown go to Houston and have his little rally out there,
Ron Brown's not the same as Bill Clinton, though. I mean, that's
but I mean, he was Clinton's surrogate. He was Clinton's campaign.
Quite. Ron Brown's been dead for over 20 years.
Yeah, and you can thank his friend Bill for it.
Give it a rest.
Yeah.
No rule that said he couldn't go out and campaign while the DNC was happening. So
I mean, these.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with what Trump did.
I agree.
I think it goes back to play the game. This is what it is. You're in a campaign. Plus, this year, obviously, we all know this is not a traditional campaign. Everything has been upside down, right side, whatever. So you use the opportunities that you are given and doing that. And with so little time left, just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and Biden can do the same thing next week, right? They can go out there and do that.
Going back to my point about when people are going to get their mail-in ballots and send them back in, he might not get the opportunity to get to these states if he waits as long, until after the conventions are over. Why not wait? Don't waste the week. Go and do what you got to do.
And honestly, I think, what's funny is Congress is going to come back to town next week, I believe it is, but they're going to come back.
Not next week, after that.
Week after next, okay. But, I mean, why do they feel they're entitled to have time off in August, quite frankly?
The less time they're in session, the fewer bad laws they pass.
That's true, too, but it's not.
I don't know what you're complaining about.
My issue, Brian, is this. They work for me and you, the taxpayer. Okay, if they're going to take this much time off, they shouldn't be paid for that time. They should be paid.
You can raise my taxes to pay them double their salary if they leave me the hell alone more.
No. I'm not going to raise taxes. And let me tell you something. There are a bunch of overpaid bureaucrats. I angered a Republican once at a Wednesday meeting where I said,
Only once? You've only angered a Republican once?
Yeah,
You walked into that one.
I put out a thing basically saying how there was an article that my taxpayer group put out saying that members of Congress are overpaid bureaucrats, and maybe we should pay them by the hour and give them merit pay. And one member of Congress says, we work really hard, that we stay away from our families, Don't give me that,
But like what Brian was saying, though, I mean, we used to always talk about gridlock in Congress. We always liked that a lot because they wouldn't pass any bad laws. They were so bogged down. It's like we could live our lives without the interference of them trying to force us to do things we didn't want to do.
And a lot of us wouldn't mind continuing to have gridlock after this election.
But sadly, here's the reality on the ground, okay? If Biden and Harris become president, okay, I mean, come on. And then if they happen to win the Senate, the crazy stuff that's going to be rammed down our throats.
Yeah, it's not going to be good.
D.C. is going to get statehood. Oh, no, they don't care about D.C., so D.C.'s not going to need, they're not going to give D.C. statehood, but they will be raising taxes. These guys are talking about a tenants' bill of rights. They're trying to tell landlords you can't raise rent and you can't kick people out for not paying their rent. I'm sorry. No, I will put them on the street in a heartbeat if I have to. And there's no politician.
You'd be better off making an argument about how it's unconstitutional. But
exactly.
amongst other things, I mean, there was a Democrat who once said, your home is your castle, so defend it.
But actually, one of the elements of the platform.
What did happen to George Mahoney?
He lost the Spiro Agnew. Right. He lost the Spiro Agnew.
But let's go back to one of the elements of the Democratic platform is to encourage structural reform of the judiciary, which has been used as a code word for essentially court packing. Mm-hmm. And the proposal would be there's nothing in the Constitution that says that you have to have 9 justices, as Franklin Roosevelt tried.
That's what they're going to pick up FDR's pack the courts. He's going to pack the courts.
There's nothing unconstitutional about it.
Yeah,
Right.
but there's it smacks of we can't win, so let's just move the goalposts some more.
Mark, that sounds a little bit like the 9D program, right? The county council's reaction for nine districts was, let's add a couple more. Well,
Right,
will that help you?
a little different
A little different,
context.
but still. But,
So I mean, but clearly both. I mean, one of the things that both Biden and Harris have been very focused on during their career has been court and judicial issues, and so I would certainly expect that you're going to see a very aggressive effort to pack the judiciary, and if necessary, or if they can get away with it, depending what the Senate looks like, to move to expanded expansion of the Supreme Court.
But the Supreme Court, I mean, Mark, the Supreme Court hasn't been as bad for the liberals as they thought it was going to be either.
Yes.
They don't care.
That's
Gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, they're going to do it anyway.
Right.
And actually, some of that arguably has been, I think Roberts is acutely aware of, I mean, I shouldn't say, there has been speculation that Roberts is acutely aware of this particular prospect and has been one of the reasons why he has perhaps been, I hesitate to say this in front of Dwight because it'll set him off, but more moderating. I mean, he's been tacking more to the center precisely because of this sort of institutional issue associated with potentially increasing the size of the Supreme Court. Sorry?
As Chief Justice.
What's
I
that?
said he's definitely been an Earl Warren as Chief Justice.
Yes.
Well, that's almost, I mean, that's kind of almost over the top there. But anyway.
But see, look, Brian goes back to the '60s too.
All right. Well, let's just talk a little bit about the RNC convention. I mean, Dwight, you referred to it kind of earlier. We're batting last, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is good for this because one of the things here is that the Republicans have a chance. I don't know how they'll do it. They'll take advantage of it. Is that they can look at how the DNC ran theirs and see if there are tweaks and things they can do to make sure theirs maybe runs a little smoother, or some other things that didn't quite work for the DNC will work and make this a very 4 solid days. The question is, will they be able to do that? Do they have enough star power lineup? What do they got planned here?
Do they have enough people on Zoom calls that they don't have to repeat boxes?
Yeah. What was all that about? Yeah. That was something.
I assumed that was just bad staff work, but it looked awful.
Well, yeah, it did look awful.
By the way, I think ours will be better just because we're better than them on digital. Frankly, for a long time.
I just love that. Vote for me because I'm better than that other guy.
It worked for me when I ran for student senator at Chicago. Then I regretted actually winning because people came to me with real world problems. I'm like, wait, I'm just here for the parties. I'm not really here to actually help you with your student aid or stuff like that. That's why I decided after one.
Okay, but so I mean, what does that mean? What are
no idea where you're going there.
What are our expectations for next week?
I think it's going to be a lot more high energy. I think there's going to be a lot more of a positivity message. There was a lot of doom and gloom in the DNC, and I think that spreading that message of positivity and making it like a party, I think is going to work really well in their favor. People are looking for something to hold on to in a time that they've seen as kind of a dark time, and yes, there are a number of people who think this is such a dark time because of how Trump has been handling things, but there's also a number of people. I mean, my mom keeps telling people who like don't want to vote for Trump or don't like him. She said, I was at his rally in Florida. She said, I've never had more fun. She's a registered Democrat, but she, that party atmosphere, that camaraderie that you see at these rallies, I think is going to be really evident in the RNC convention, which is not something that we were really seeing with the DNC, which was more of a doom and gloom convention for the most part, in my opinion.
I have a lot of concerns about some of the speakers I've seen. I mean, you got some good speakers. You've got Nikki Haley. You've got Tim Scott, Diamond and Silk, Scott Baio.
They're always fun.
Come on.
Scott Baio actually would not be that bad.
The couple from St. Louis.
Yeah, who have terrible trigger discipline.
Well, they have the high schoolers.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
the high
Nick
school-
Sandman speaking also, as is.
Is he going to roll up in the limo he bought with all his settlement money?
Did he buy a
Yeah,
limo?
he can buy the convention at this point. But it's like, I think the problem is, it's like you look at the star power the DNC had, And look, there's an automatic built-in advantage to the Democrats when it comes to entertainers.
If
To
Hollywood
stuff like
swings
that.
left, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
come on, man.
But you know something,
No,
Jackie?
it's like if I have a choice between Eva Longoria or Scott Baio,
Eva Longoria.
Or dare I say Clint Eastwood?
But here,
Do you
here's
remember the Clint Eastwood
And the chair.
in the chair?
But, you know,
That was surreal.
Here's the thing. There was actually a time when Hollywood was actually more patriotic, do I dare say, when you had people like John Wayne,
that's fair.
George Burns.
Well, there's got to be a lot of closet Republicans in Hollywood.
Well,
but,
there
you
are.
know,
There are. There's actually a Fred Grandy who used to be on morning radio here and the star of Love Boat. He would talk about.
Congressman.
Yes.
Congressman, right?
Yes, that's right. U.S. Congressman, and he made a comment once on the radio when he was there is a secret underground in Hollywood where, you know, Republicans conservatives in Hollywood get together and they have to do it on the really down low because they don't, you know, like Kirk Cameron came out as a conservative and he has never had a job since whatever, you know, Willie Ames is another one who's really never worked after he came out as a conservative. I mean, there's a lot of bigotry against conservatives in Hollywood.
But still, the fact that you're trying to put any sort of star power against that means you get you get Eva Longoria versus Scott Baio, you get Kid Rock versus Beyonce, and you get Steph Curry versus whichever athlete we throw up there. It's like these are massive stars.
John Elway's one of us, as is Peyton Manning.
John Elway, stop. John Elway is the reason the Colts went to Indianapolis. Do not say that.
That was before your time, Brian. Were you even alive when the Colts played in Baltimore?
I was 4 years, 6 months, and 7 days old when the Colts left Baltimore.
He remembers it. He remembers those moving trucks.
Kid's memory.
Hey, Ryan,
Those moving
Brian,
trucks.
do you remember Mayflower?
When I see them.
Do you never use Mayflower for your moving needs too?
No, it's funny. The first time I ever went to Indianapolis, it was for the YR convention in 2009. First thing I see come into Indianapolis is like this whole lot of Mayflower trucks. God.
Let me ask you guys this though. Okay, so we had the Biden speech and all this kind of stuff. And what does President Trump have to do in his speech to kind of help maybe get moving, seal the deal, close the gap,
stay on prompter?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. How about can I go as far as that? Does he have to be anything reasonable, anything close to like Reagan-esque?
No, if he stays on the prompter and doesn't go off on some wild tangent like he often does.
If he does like he did his CPAC speech that he gave a couple years ago, he'd be fine.
I think he's going to talk about what the world looked like pre-COVID, what his numbers were then. I think he's going to talk about the law and order side of things, what's going on in all of the Democrat-run cities with the rioting and the looting. I think we can predict exactly what talking points he's going to hit.
I mean, honestly, we could go and dust off the Nixon-Agnew playbook from '72 and just run a hard law and order campaign against the lawless Democrats, I mean, it's taken the Democrats 48 years to find somebody that makes George McGovern and Sergeant Shriver look like right-wing nutcases.
Could I take a little contrary view to that? I mean, I understand that in setting a contrast is obviously an important part of an election.
Mm-hmm.
But part of what you also want when somebody's running for re-election is to lay out a more positive vision of how why a second term makes sense, what you're going to be able to accomplish, why you're different than the other, but in a positive way, and why there's still work to be done. The challenge is that what you all described are all sort of necessary building blocks to getting the base out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking to get somebody that whatever, I think it's down to about 2% that's in the middle, you really got to have a message of why a second term is something what people really want.
So what
and I don't think any Nixon-Trump comparisons, and I don't think that's a good idea at this point.
Yeah, I think that's yes.
Yeah, and that's why I said be kind of Reagan-esque. Give them that hope and things like that about the future. That Reagan was. But
here's the problem. I mean, the challenge is I'm going back. Dwight will appreciate this. 1984 was It's Morning in America, And that was the message last January. That is not the message now.
No, but you see the John Wilkes Booth Society. They're basically. If you look at the John Wilkes Booth Society's commercials they do. Yeah. Oh, did you guys know Lincoln Project changed their name to the John Wilkes Booth Society? But anyways, John Wilkes Booth Society, they do these commercials, about how horrible it is in America. Nobody wants to hear that about their country, that, oh, it's so horrible, it's so horrible. You don't win on misery, you win on positivity. And let me tell you, the president can hit it out of the park by talking about all the good things. We are still the shining city upon a hill. He's got the wall, 300 miles, he'll have 500 miles, I think, done by the end of the year. If you vote for, and the economy is coming back, the economy's added roughly about 8 to 9 million jobs since COVID. This is since COVID, and we're coming back.
And the market has been way up recently.
We got more unemployment numbers that will be coming out for August. We'll have them for September and October. And I tell you, if we are in the below 10% numbers, and we're not even we aren't even cooking the books over DOL like the Obama administration did in 2012. The U6 number was, what's that?
Oh, no, go ahead, Dwight. I'll finish.
As I was saying, is like the U6 number under Obama in 2012 was everything. Real unemployment was almost like 20% under Obama. But, you had their friends in big media that would say, oh, no, we're actually down to 5%. No. I mean, here's the thing. 8 years of Obama-Biden, nobody felt the economy was doing well. Nobody was expanding. People were just kind of holding because they were just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And Trump gets elected, the stock market shoots up the next day. I think if Biden gets elected, we're going to see, sell all your stocks in the morning because it's going to tank the next day because they know Biden's going to start.
Actually, that's completely separate of the election. The amount of money that is flowing in to the, is what's lifting the markets. If you have interest rates as low as they are, you've got a market in which there's no alternative. So I'd put that off to the side.
And the market is always a forward-looking mechanism. They are looking 6 months to a year ahead and trying to figure out where we'll be. If they see that that's not going to be good, you're going to see a reversal at some point in time.
We're close to getting a vaccine. We're starting human trials for the vaccine. We're going to be back. And who do you want to run this ship? The guy that had us, jobs coming out of our ears in January and February? Or do you want a guy that had meager when he was in charge for 8 years with him and Obama, where nobody felt, there was like this malaise, nobody felt happy. The country was, nobody felt like things were getting better. Things were like kind of stagnant. The new normal was a 6% unemployment number. Remember those days? Or the GDP, is the new normal. It's only going to be this. And we've kind of disproved that. We've busted that myth, So it comes down to, look, the president needs to say the message. Look, the COVID is an act of God. It's not something that it's not. Actually, it's an act of the Tricoms who built.
You should tell half our party that.
But I've told our party, people that listen, and but at the end of the day, it's a Tricom virus, and something. Communism is still living alive and well in the Democrat Party. You've got corruption, and you got China. It's kind of like the old playbook we used against Harry Truman's Democrat Party.
Yeah, he got reelected too.
No. But the Eisenhower campaign used the same thing in '52.
He got reelected.
He got Stevenson. That's a war hero. One thing I want to bring up about the convention next week, don't underestimate the effect of this. It's not going to necessarily affect the convention itself, is the fact that we're going to have 2 landfalling hurricanes at the beginning of next week. So that's going to take a lot of the focus away from the actual convention itself. No matter
what is it with our conventions and hurricanes? 2012, we had a hurricane.
This is 2 of them, though. So that's even wilder.
We had 2. Remember Minnesota? We had 2 hurricanes then, too. Remember?
Yeah.
Even though we were far.
I say it's a sign.
I'm going to play right into this for Brian. But one more thing, and then we'll move on to other issues here. But the conventions themselves, because they're virtual, we've seen the ratings drop. We'll probably not see much of a difference in ratings next week either compared to 4 years ago. Without an in-person, without all those festivities. But it does bring up the question, which I believe you wrote about, Brian, about do we need convention? What are the conventions worth? Is that so? what's going on here? What's your feeling on this?
You know, I
Brian?
wrote my column in the Capital today was about how conventions at this juncture are anachronistic, and the only real reason that they even need to exist is if a party goes to a convention without a nominee, something that hasn't happened realistically since 1976, where it was even kind of in doubt, and it hasn't gone to a second ballot since 1952. You know, the conventions, adopt a platform that nobody reads, that nobody pays attention to. It's basically a giant party.
And that's why we need the convention.
And for people to continue to grow their network. And I know that's why they exist, but
That's why Dwight likes to go to them, is because it's a nice party.
It's a nice party,
I quoted Don Murphy in my piece today, talking about how it would be cheaper for him to go to Safari in Africa than it was going to be to go to Charlotte for the convention this year, just due to the expense. You talk about taxpayer dollars being spent on this, both in the host cities and the host states, the federal dollars because they're special security events. A lot of money gets spent at these things.
and they're
Can I push back on
this anymore?
Brian,
Could
they're
I
also
push back-
stimulative to those cities. I mean, Roy Cooper doesn't care about the good people of Charlotte. That's why he banned the
could I?
Republicans.
But let me address Dwight's sorry, Brian. I
We
called you
look
Dwight.
just alike.
Yeah, I know. I that's an unforgivable mistake on my part.
Yeah.
But on both counts. But anyway, no, I think that one of the things that the conventions have historically provided is really kind of a fixed period of time in which the level of attention that is applied to both candidates, both parties, is that much more elevated. And when it works well, and I'm not sure how it works because of COVID and virtual whatever, but you at least have the opportunity to kind of make the case on a sustained basis in a way that frames the election season that comes forward. And we've talked about it. So, what's the Biden message? How does that, it all fits in. So maybe the platform isn't as relevant as it used to be. By the way, I'm the Maryland representative on the Republican Platform Committee. I don't have a lot to do this year because we're using the one from 4 years ago. But I do think it does perform that function. Yeah, there's a lot of showbiz and bells and whistles and what have you. But it is a period in which people kind of take a measure of the two parties and the two candidates.
And if that's the argument, which I can accept that as an argument, then we should never do an in-person convention again, and everything should be virtual.
No. How do you do a party, a virtual party? You can't do that.
No.
Why do you think CPAC is so wildly popular? It's because it's you get great speakers there, but you also have great parties.
CPAC is an entirely unusual, weird,
there was
weird family reunion. I mean, it's just that's what it is.
There was a time when the RNC did regional conventions. They had a Northeast Regions convention. They did it in Philadelphia. It was hosted by the New York, Pennsylvania Republican Party, as well as the other states. Maryland was part of it. Went up there.
Yeah, we did one a couple of years ago when I was YR chair, actually, if I remember correctly.
That was, I want to say that would have been 2013.
Yeah, maybe 2013, 2014. Diana was chairman, so it was at that point.
Yeah.
But even I did it when I was the Northeast Regional YR chair. We did something like that, a regional convention. It was the first time it had ever been done anywhere in the
RNC definitely next year we should definitely bring those back because people miss going to Jacksonville or Charlotte. People have got money.
If you've been to Jacksonville, you'd realize you wouldn't have really missed it.
But it wasn't
Jacksonville. Jacksonville's not that bad.
The opportunity to go and to celebrate, the fact that we get to actually elect somebody, unlike a lot of countries that don't really have that option. It's a celebration of democracy in a lot of ways.
That's why.
To Dwight's point, though, that's why the regional conventions are a good idea because you're more likely to interface with people in your region than you are people out around the country, and fewer people are going to go, and it's going to be less of a haul on the host delegation.
That could be what we see for the foreseeable future, and that could go on for years. I don't think we're going to have large events.
No, look, the Northeast Convention, I'll tell you, was great, and I got to have lunch with the legendary chairman of Nassau County, Joe Montello. Joe is a good guy. I run into Joe, and Joe
we knew that was going to come up sooner.
But I think we should do all of the above. National conventions. I actually think the national convention should be a 2-week affair opposed to a 1-week affair.
Oh my gosh!
I see a lot of these conventions are kind of like
and in Ocean City, right, Dwight?
I would not mind to the Northeast Regional Convention in Ocean City.
Well,
You guys on a cruise ship.
Well, when the national
Yeah.
convention was in San Diego, the host they really tried to stretch that out in terms of for the attendees.
that was a lot of fun.
Because they tried to make the vendors show up like
Yep.
a week early and all this kind of stuff, and they had all these huge plans, and
Yeah,
a
but
lot of
San
people were like,
Diego's awesome.
yeah. But a lot of people thought like, why do they need to be there that early, like the vendors, when there weren't the
By the way,
delegates weren't going to
San
be
Diego
running
was the
for a
first
while.
convention I attended, and that was like awesome. And it's funny, we were staying at with the New York delegation because Claudette Hale was a client of mine. She was running for Congress. But the Maryland delegation had we were at the Del Coronado, but the Maryland delegation had, I thought, a nicer view. They were at the Travel Lodge in San Diego. And,
That is
you're-
such a metaphor for so much about our state and party.
You're comparing the
Anyway.
Hotel Del Coronado to the Travel Lodge. Oh my goodness!
Well, what I liked about the Travel Lodge was it was around stuff, while the Coronado was not around.
Kind of stuff, Dwight.
And I was only. There was a Olive Gardens. There was.
He was young and restless back then.
You're probably basically up in Oceanside by that point.
All right,
And-
we're running. We're getting
Please,
low on time.
Don,
Here.
pull us
we're
back.
gonna move on. Those are great discussions. We've had a lot of good discussion here. Well, let's go back to what Jackie and Dwight were talking about a little bit earlier, and we can just spend a few minutes on this, which is the Postal Service has come under fire. Jackie was talking about mail-in voting and all these issues. That's been a big deal. The Postmaster General was up on the Hill getting grilled. Is it fair? I mean, a lot of things that the Postmaster General was doing have been things that have been going on for a long time. I mean, this has been part of a years-long effort to try to do things with the Postal Service, become more efficient. They've been retiring sorting machines. They've been taking mailboxes out of circulation.
They've been going away. Those blue mailboxes have been going away. I remember in my neighborhood there used to be about back when I first moved here. I want to say we had one at the corner down there, one up there, one over there, and now they're all gone. There's only one that I know of that's still around.
I know my in the neighborhood I grew up, I knew that we had at least two. I'm sure they're gone because one of the rules that was implemented years ago is that you had to have 25 pieces of mail in that thing on a regular basis. That after that, if they evaluated they weren't getting deposits of 25 pieces of mail, then they would remove them. It wasn't worth it to service it. And the mail volume, as we all know, first class mail volume has continued to go down. So, is this something because of all the furor because it's the Democrats? Is because of some things Trump said? Is it the Postal Workers Union? Is a lot of these things are all in combination?
Here's my question about the mailboxes. Is there a big need for mailboxes that people absolutely positively must mail their ballot from a blue mailbox
They
and
can't
they
put it in
can't
the
mail
mailbox?
from a house or a post office?
Hey, Brian, how are the dead going to vote? The dead don't have homes to put their ballots in a mailbox.
I mean, I live in an apartment. I just go down to the mailroom, pop it in the slot, and call it a day. You know what I mean? But I think that the source of a lot of these being picked up is also like, I couldn't tell you, aside from the primary, the last time I put a piece of mail in the mailbox.
Yeah. Also,
email something, you can scan something and email it. It's like there's a lot less of a need.
You can pay your bills online.
Yeah.
All my banking. I had the same conversation. People like, what do you mean you don't have a checkbook?
Except the city of Annapolis. The city of Annapolis doesn't let you pay online.
Well, it's interesting talking to folks in the elections community. One of the points that came up in the primary is a tremendous amount of resistance on the part of people who were really afraid, who didn't trust the mails. And that's one of the reasons they wanted to vote in person, or they wanted to be able to drop the ballot off at a secure location. Candidly, I was of the mind that just if you give it enough time, it'll get there. But there is a very deep-rooted fear that a lot of people have about their vote not counting if they mail it.
Yeah, even in the primary, I dropped our ballots off at the drop box just because I didn't want to deal with the hassle, and also because I procrastinated. But, I don't know how we haven't decided how we're going to vote yet in the general election. But if we do absentee ballots, I would absolutely go drop it off at the drop box again. I mean, why take the chance?
The other thing
to the post office. Here's the other thing about the post office that's happening is this. Jackie, before your time, when I was a kid, long distance calls, you made those on Saturday because there was a toll charge. Like if I would actually from a call from Bethesda to Germantown was a toll call. A call to Herndon was a toll call.
You could dial with only 7 digits.
Yeah.
that's
You're really
here and there.
But my point is this. The price, okay, we don't have toll calls anymore. The price of stamps is 55 cents. 55, think about it. It's
Which you learned last week.
55 cents. 55 cents is what a can of soda costs in a soda machine.
Not anymore, dude. What are you?
What soda machine are you going to? The one at Walmart with the Walmart soda?
They're like $1 in a machine now, man.
Are
At
they?
least.
No, but I'm talking. If
Price
you
of
go,
a gallon of milk.
I actually do know that $4.99.
We don't buy milk, but that's
$4.99 is the price of a gallon of
No,
milk.
but the
But
other
no,
thing,
my point is this.
Yeah,
It's
where is
cheaper-
your point?
it's
I have
cheaper-
no idea.
Okay,
I'm really kind of fascinated to hear
the
this.
reason
'Cause
we don't need the post office as much as we once did because one, nobody writes letters. I think I might be one of the few people that still send out Christmas cards. Thank you, Brian, Mark. No, you who yell at me for telling people to use Christmas card lists for fundraising.
oh, right.
things.
Okay.
But here's the thing: at 55 cents a pop to send out, a letter, I could pick up the phone and call Grandma and say, "Hey, Grandma, how you doing?" I would have written you a letter if it was like 30 years ago. That's probably my grandmother was alive.
do you
too.
want
How are you going to send
Grandparents
pictures of your kids by calling her on the phone?
I
I
taught my
can
grandparents how
text
to
her.
FaceTime.
My grandmother would know. My grandmother, she was still with us. She'd know how to use a smartphone, and we'd send her.
I mean, look,
My grandparents could barely use their cable TV. There ain't no way they're going to be able to download a picture from a phone.
I don't have cable, right?
Me either.
In fact, that
I
was
mean-
actually one of my problems with the Democratic convention is I kept looking on Netflix for it.
It's on YouTube, I think. You could actually watch it on
Yes.
Facebook.
Was that on the Barack Obama channel, Mark?
Hey, Mark, you're not. By the way, not having cable, you're not missing anything because there's.
I know.
nothing worth
Yeah.
watching.
Baseball. You're missing baseball. That's about it.
that Trump has addressed with the mail-in voting is that they just want to send everybody a ballot. Is how many people are going to send in their ballot and show up on election day and vote again anyway, and how many times that can happen?
Democrats.
How much are they really going to catch?
So in theory, the way it works is that once somebody is sent a ballot, they are listed on a list that is in their poll book at the polling place, and
But
that they
they're
can,
not. But if they're
in theory.
if they're blanket sending everybody a ballot, that's not an option. If
Of course, if we're not going to check voter ID, at least in Maryland, what the hell's the difference anyway?
Hey, but Brian, here's a question. I know everybody. I know the Democrats want everything mailed in, right? Hey, but what about the people that don't have mailboxes? Like, what if somebody moved into a house where the previous owners took the mailbox and the house numbers? How are they going to get their ballot? I think that we should just,
What?
that's an old joke.
What was that?
That's an old. You guys don't know that joke about the kid goes to college. He goes, we sent you our new address, but the previous owners took the house number and the mailboxes with them, so we don't, can't give you a new address because there's no numbers on the house. Okay, I guess
All right,
it's a period.
we got a few more minutes.
God, bring us back.
Yeah, I still want to ask you a few more questions, and I think we'll go a little bit over time because we started a couple minutes late anyway. So, Steve Bannon, big, indicted, arrested,
disheveled drunk.
build the wall, swindle, scandal. Now he's pleaded, he's not guilty and all this kind of thing. But I mean, how does the group feel about this? Is he going to jail in the end? I mean,
I hope he does, frankly. Steve Bannon is a disheveled drunk who thinks he knows everything. He's the reason we
You
lost.
can't prove he's a drunk.
My friend Congressman King will
You
beg
can
to
prove he's
differ.
disheveled.
Devil, arrogant, yes, but not. You can't prove he's a drunk.
My friend Congressman King would argue with that one, but and it's the good king, not the bad king from.
Yeah, he's from Long Island, I heard.
Yeah,
Yeah, the good kid.
God's country. But anyways,
I like that.
I think the bigger problem with all this is the message that's like the sixth person in Trump's inner circle
I
who's
know.
been either indicted or
and the Democrats are jumping all over it.
hires the best people.
Yeah, I mean,
Only the best people.
the Democrats are using that message so much about draining the swamp. He's got a swamp right in his own midst.
I know,
He brought a
Yeah,
new
he's
swamp
been
with him. That's
gone.
the problem.
Yeah, and Bannon's been gone for 3 years now?
Yeah, he was fired. He was not just gone; he was fired.
Well,
Yeah.
Bannon's problem was hubris because he thought that he was the big cheese in this operation.
he had Don
found out
Regan disease.
very quickly he was not.
See, Brian, he had Don Regan disease. Don Regan thought that too.
And honestly, yeah, I feel like the Democrats are going to push for max sentence that all that they can for Steve Bannon, just because at one point he was associated with Donald Trump.
Oh, he should get the back sentence because play
Yeah.
stupid games, win stupid prizes. You know, I mean, it's
Right.
like if you're
But
going
they
to
don't. That they don't, like the Democrats could care less about what he actually did. His biggest crime in their eyes was being associated with the Trump.
But wait a second. I mean, without going into all the facts, what's really stupid about what Bannon did is, there's a cottage industry in Washington of raising money independent of campaigns for independent expenditure groups, where you're, quote, supporting a particular issue and what have you. Actually, the Lincoln Project is a great example of this, where
The
they
John Wilkes Booth
raised
Project, Mark
John Wilkes
Buchanan.
Booth Project. They raised a ton of money and they put a lot of money into salaries and what have you, and made a few ads and spent some money. Right, but the whole thing is when you're spending it for support, and actually candidates have no control over that because they're required by the law to be separated. So you have this cottage industry that goes out and frankly deceives people that the money is being used for a particular kind of advocacy. Bannon was an effing idiot because instead of saying he was doing that, he went out, which under the rules you can get away with, he went out and said, I'm using the money to build a wall. Well, that's pretty easy to figure out. If nothing's getting
building a wall
built,
on his property.
it's fraud.
He's building a wall on his property.
What he didn't say was the wall was the name of that 150-foot yacht he had.
No, but at the end of the day, I'll say this. Steve Bannon, I am glad he is. I mean, I always thought the guy. Remember, the president was losing until he brought in David Bossie and Kellyanne in 2016. I mean, he was just like even though he stuck around, but I mean, it was basically the brains operation was Bossie and Kellyanne. Frankly, I mean, that disheveled drunk, as Congressman King once called him, had nothing to do with Trump's victory in 2016. The guy is responsible.
I just slipped that one in. Did you notice that? The disheveled drunk.
Yeah, but he attributed it to somebody else. He's quoted. It's fine.
Yes.
And he's also responsible for Roy Moore winning the primary in Alabama, which gave us that
true.
Democrat.
Yep.
It is, what is the matter with this idiot? He thinks, it's kind of like, when Sarah Palin went around saying, oh, I'm going to go support, like she supported people, like she supported, in Maryland, she supported that guy from Smith Island.
Brian Murphy.
Yeah,
Brian
she supported him over Bob Earl.
Easton.
I mean, Brian Murphy's a great guy and all that, but come on, the former governor's running. What the hell are you doing? So.
All right. I want to let's, as we get here towards the end, I want to just kind of go local again, and that is just because I know not everyone on the panel probably feels the same about Kim Klacik and her run-in for Congress, but she put out this video that has really gone viral. Thoughts about that video? I mean, I assume everybody's seen the video by now.
The video did exactly what it was intended to do, which was to get national attention and go viral and get herself just a little bit closer to that speaking, that media gig that she wants. She's not really running for Congress. She doesn't care about running for Congress. She can't win in Congress. She's not putting the effort to win in Congress. She just wants to be a media star, and bully on her. Good for her. She's a step closer.
Here's the thing. I will say, I was pleasantly surprised by that. I mean, that was great. I mean, the
ad was fantastic.
Was
Don't
brilliant.
get me wrong. It was tremendously well
here's the
produced.
thing,
she put half as much effort into contacting voters as she did that. She might get somewhere.
So, Brian, do you agree with what the Baltimore Sun wrote about her then?
No, if you go to the duckpin.com. Thank you, Don. I agreed with what the Sun said about her and her focus on things that are not related to running for Congress. Then I proceeded to spend 7 or 8 paragraphs burying the Baltimore Sun for even thinking that Democrats are not responsible for what's going on in Baltimore, which they are.
By the way, and here's the other thing. Did you guys hear Queasy and Fume come out and trash her, and there was a funny thing I saw. Somebody posted, true or not, I don't know, I'm just quoting what I saw. And it says, it'd be nice if Queasy and Fume would be that concerned with his illegitimate children that are running around the city of Baltimore.
Well, that's actually really
allegedly.
Allegedly.
Interesting because there was an article,
And-
but Harry O'Connell posted today in Maryland Politics, basically something bashing Kim Klacik because her white husband has contributed to the single mother issue in Baltimore because he
Because
has
of the strip club.
Oh, he's a
Six
businessman.
days.
I mean, I'm getting tired of people berating them for. He's a legitimate. He's not. It's not like he's a mobster. It's not like he's. It's not like he's like
a lot of
Mr. Zaccaro.
'cause
It's
where-
like he's running a cat house. I mean,
I'm sorry. Where else is Hunter Biden going to go in the state of Maryland?
Exactly. You know.
But I think it's been really cool, whether you agree with Kim Klacik as a candidate or not, or what she's doing. It's been really cool having, my parents have had friends over and like, oh, did you see this like Kim lady? I'm like, yeah, that's my state. That's Maryland. I know her. Yeah. No, but that's been a lot of fun. And actually, it's been really interesting seeing her. They keep putting her head to head with Michelle Obama's speech and how many more views Kim's video has gotten. So if anything else, I think that's been, oh my God, yeah. Oh my God. And so if nothing else, it's been really entertaining to see that.
And here's the thing, Kim Klacik, she's got a guy who was congressman of the 7th district years ago, and now he's running again for his old job because the guy that succeeded him died. Now he wants his old job back. And then, if you look around, Baltimore has not changed all that. It has not changed all that much since the last time Queasy represented Maryland 7. It's still.
and look, I am very hesitant to defend any Democratic member of Congress from any state, particularly Maryland. The amount of problems that are going on in Baltimore City and the amount of direct influence a congressman can have over that is extremely limited. It would actually be better to critique the lack of progress in Baltimore from his time as the president of the NAACP when it was headquartered in Baltimore and all the help he could have done there in the private sector than anything he could do as a member of Congress. And I think that ultimately gets back to my frustration from the political side of the Klacik ad, is that if she wanted to focus on Baltimore problems, she could run for mayor and wind up bluntly with the same result that she's going to get in November, except then you'd be running for a position that actually can directly fix the problems that she's addressing.
I mean, here's the thing, Congress, here's a couple things that members of Congress could have done for Baltimore. They could have done some of that traffic gridlock. They could have spent some money on building roads instead of wasting money on mass transit and stuff like that.
But now
that's not
That's
Baltimore's problem.
What's
well,
that?
Trump has now committed to helping Kim heal Baltimore, so it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of that
Well,
is.
There's a certain.
That could go in so many different directions.
Yeah,
what that means.
We have
All right,
another. Yeah.
Last thing here, and then we'll close it out. Not just because it came up today, and once again, somewhat local politics. Terry McAuliffe, is he going to be running for governor again in Virginia?
Yes,
Is that what he's planning on?
Yes,
Yes.
he's running. And
Would he win?
maybe.
Probably
I mean, who are
not.
the Republicans going to throw up against him at this point?
I got to tell you the truth. If it was the choice, if you held a gun to my head and made me choose between McAuliffe and Justin Fairfax, the lieutenant governor, I'd take McAuliffe.
But I think Virginia Republicans, they've got a deep bench. They could go to the bullpen if they wanted. But I think,
That's a George Allen reference. I know exactly where you're going with this.
and let me tell you something. I think the only person right now, and it pains me to say this, it really pains me to say this, Tom Davis could bring it home for them. I think Tom could. And he's
Well, the Republican Party in Virginia has got a lot of work to do because it's been a disaster lately.
I'm telling you,
for the
I never
election.
thought I'd live to see the day that the Maryland Republican Party had its act together more than the Virginia Republican Party.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're right about that.
I mean, Brian, remember after the loss in 2012, was it 2010 or 2012, where everybody rushed over to Virginia for their RPV convention, and people were making, look, they don't have their banner held up with duct tape and stuff like that. Times have changed. But it's kind of, I'll tell you when the RPV started going down south originally is when Jeff Fredericks was their chairman. He was chairman the same time Jim Pelora was chairman of the Maryland Republican Party. They got rid of him about a few months before we got rid of Jim Pelora. But Jeff Fredericks really did a lot of lasting damage to the RPV. John Whitback was doing a great job, and then we have this new chairman who, I mean, what is he doing? It's like he doesn't know what he's doing. It's like, I mean, go back. I mean, they've got some great
Virginia's
people.
got an interesting situation too, though, because you've got so many different types of Republican voters, even more so than we have in Maryland. You've got the suburban Republicans up north, and then you get the Trump Republicans who are all over the place in Virginia. You've got all sorts of just different, regional issues that come up between the Tidewater and the Appalachians and Northern Virginia and Richmond, and they have a lot more reasons to be divided than we are. And of course, as you know, anytime a party is out of power for, anytime out of power for any significant length of time, that's when the tensions go up. The fights become so big because the consequences are so small. So that's, I think, part of their problem. They need to get that leader who can start to put the party together and then get that candidate at the top of the ticket. Look at what happened when Michael Steele became Maryland Republican Party chairman, and then Bob Ehrlich wound up winning the governor's race. And with that, you wouldn't have gotten one without the other. And Michael Steele was a much different cat back then, and it. But still, if you don't have that Bob Ehrlich, I think that goes to your point, Dwight, talking about Tom Davis being the person who could win.
I think so. And by the way, I tell you, I'm going to go out and I'll tell you who should be the new chairman of the RPV. He'll do it I think he could do it for 2 years, and he could rebuild that party in those 2 years. He is a legend in the great state of Virginia. There's no one that could stand up against him, and no one could do a better job, because he's the guy that brought the RPV back from death's doornail back when he became governor, and that is George Allen, who should be the head of the RPV. Because George Allen saved the RPV back when he ran for governor in '93. Because Virginia was going through the same problems that right now. They went down defeat after defeat after defeat.
Could I just challenge a little bit? I mean, and I know Tom Davis. I worked with him quite a bit when he was on the Hill. One of the challenges is the politics has changed pretty dramatically since he last ran for office, which was. Forgive me if I'm wrong, 2004. He retired in 2006. In the dynamic...
No, 2008. He retired in 2008 because he was still in Congress. Gary ran for Fairfax County Board of Supervisors in 2007, so it's 2008.
Okay. My point is that the politics has changed, and the dynamic which Brian described of this big tent of some... people who think the Republican, just pulling together the party is a real challenge within Virginia. It remains to be seen whether or not people from, frankly, another generation, at least in terms of in political reality, are really the best suited. They've really got to be able to pull together that Trump reality, along with being competitive in the fact that Northern Virginia has in effect turning Virginia into a mid-Atlantic state rather than an ex-Confederate state. That's going to be difficult. Yeah,
the balkanization in Virginia politics is just.
But I think George Allen has ties up here, and he's got ties down in the Chesapeake region. And I think
no doubt. Yeah,
you're making the case for him to run for governor, though. At that point,
yes.
Right.
All right. Well, I think
and he's a young guy too. He's
Jackie, why don't you close us out,
please?
Final thoughts.
I'm going to start with my final thoughts tonight.
Okay.
I never go first because I'm always running it. But mine is, and just something that really pisses me off. There was a case about a year ago. I don't know if you guys remember it, of a divorced couple where the mother was trying to force her 8-year-old son to transition into being a girl. And the courts ruled against it. They said, no, they gave both parents 50% say in this little boy's medical choices, because this boy very clearly did not want to become a girl. And the court said, agreed, it's 50-50. The mother can't make that decision on her own. A new judge has just repealed that. So now the mother overturned that. So now the mother can go back to forcing her son to become her daughter. And he will be starting school this year as Luna. And that just pisses me off, because how dare they? Because
what state was this in?
Texas.
Texas.
That's a surprise.
Wow.
So, my heart goes out to this poor kid.
Must be Travis County.
Yeah. My heart goes
Yeah.
out to this kid, and I really hope he gets to stay if that's what he wants. That's my thought tonight. Dwight.
My final thoughts are on a couple of things. I've got a couple things we didn't get to talk much about, but I will tell you this. This is one of the things the Democratic Party, I think, is if they win this November, America loses. That is my thought. Think about that. When you go to cast your vote, think about this. Do you really want to have an angry old man who's going to shake his fist at kids riding their bikes in front of the White House, or do you want to have President Trump, who loves America, and the Democrat Party?
Angry man.
Let me tell you,
Shaking his fist at other people.
Yeah, exactly right.
he's shaking his fist at the hippies.
They're both, well, anyway.
But here's the thing. This is kind of like, this is class of 68.
That was the wrong mental picture to create, Dwight.
This is the class of 68 on steroids right now. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and I know that's not how she pronounced her, but I'm going to call her Kamala Harris, frankly. This is basically, all these are the most radical of radical lefties. I mean, I never thought I would see somebody make George McGovern and Hubert Humphrey look like moderate right, center right Democrats, frankly. But they've done it with this ticket, and it is and quite frankly, elections have consequences. I mean, I think I'll be able to be isolated for the next 4 years if we have to live under the heel of the Biden regime. I think, but something, America, you'll get what you deserve if you vote for Joe Biden, because if you listen to what they said, if you listen to anything, it's all about giveaway stuff, free college, free this, nothing's for free, somebody's got to pay for it, and guess who's going to pay for it? We all are. And that's my final thought.
All right. Mark.
I'm going to say something that I know Brian is going to disagree with it, and maybe I'm saying it just because he's on the show. But as I referenced before, I was elected to the platform committee for the RNC. This year, we're not having a platform other than just carry forward the 2016 platform. And I got to say that as I think about it, not because of my role, but I think in general, it's a useful undertaking for the party. It's certainly sometimes a little messy, but it's a useful undertaking for parties to define what they're for, and to be able to make that contrast and to make those changes. And I think it's unfortunate we're not going to have that this year.
All right, Brian, we'll let you go next so you can respond and then go into your final thought.
Yeah, I'm not even going to respond to that. It's just there are ways to do a platform without doing it at having a national convention, and we can agree to disagree on that. Now, I want to talk about leadership, and Don mentioned it a little bit earlier. Earlier this week, Fernando Tatis of the San Diego Padres hit a grand slam on a 3-0 count with the Padres up by 7 runs, and everybody got mad because it violated one of baseball's unwritten rules. Okay. Everybody basically agrees, don't throw a bad pitch on 3-0. The Rangers were mad, yada, yada, yada. The problem is that Jace Tingler, who is the manager of the San Diego Padres, did not have his players back. And if a manager or a leader does not have the back of their people, they should be kicked to the curb because they do not have their best interests at heart and cannot be trusted. I bring all this up to talk about Andrew Cuomo. And Andrew Cuomo, who, of course, as you know, 32,000 people have died because of the coronavirus, thanks to Andrew Cuomo mostly, because 11,000 of those died in nursing homes due to regulations that he put into place. I mean, he is directly responsible for 11,000 of those deaths solely based on those nursing home regulations. So the fact that this chucklehead is going out there and he is going to sell a book talking about how great of a leader he is on the coronavirus just goes to show how much of a lack of a leader he is, continuing to tell people how awesome he is and how his you-know-what don't stink, despite the fact that just the body count of people who have died on his watch due to coronavirus. Leadership is important, and leaders who don't have the backs of their people cannot be trusted.
Couldn't agree more. Don, close us out.
All right, I had put this on the list because I wanted to get Marcus's reaction initially, but I'll keep it. I'll do it anyway. Which
get
is
it in the comments.
Which is Tesla stock hit $2,000 a share, which is phenomenal because it was in the $300-$400 range last year. It had tanked a little bit. There was a lot of shorts on that stock. But I keep thinking, it's like, boy, if I bought 100 shares of that, I could probably own a couple of Teslas by now, right?
But I tell you, Don, funny you should mention that. Hyundai has a hydrogen fuel cell car where you can actually fill it up in less time than it takes to charge a Tesla. I think that is actually the future, hydrogen fuel cells. We need to build more hydrogen fueling stations. Right now, you can't really get them outside of the horrible state of California, but hydrogen fuel cells is the future.
Wait, you just made that from a Snapple fact into I don't know what it was.
I was just going to say, one of the unwritten rules of this particular show, Brian, is that Dwight invariably always has the last word.
Until I close it out. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next Friday.
Bye now.